The Giants stepped up in their three-game road series in Atlanta and proved to themselves and to everyone, to fans, that they can hang with the big boys in the National League.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. I've been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. This episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. And coming up on today's show, as I said, the Giants proved to themselves and to fans, hopefully, I think, in this three-game series and really their last three series, that they can hang with some of the best teams in the game. I mean, they just won 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers and the Braves, right? And so that it shows us a couple things. Number one, that any team can beat any other team, because even if you think the Giants stink, then this is proof that any team can beat any other team in a short series, especially. So you start looking at playoff series, and this is why I say, like, you just have to get in, because the Giants can beat the Braves. The Giants can beat the Dodgers. You know, any team can, but the Giants are also not bad, I would say, and they've got a ton of injuries, and they've got guys coming back, which is something we'll get into. But, you know, winning 2 out of 3 on the road in Atlanta just kind of, I'm not going to say it puts to rest, but it addresses a couple of key areas of weakness for the Giants more than halfway through the 2024 season, which is that, you know, their road record and their record against teams at or above 500 was not good. I mean, even with winning 2 out of 3, their road record is 18-26. And even with winning 2 out of 3 against the Braves, a team that's most definitely over 500, their record against teams at or above 500 is just 15-26. And so if you could be more like 500 in those two categories, then you'd be looking at a much better position for the Giants, who are, you know, 7-3 in their last 10. I believe if they win today's game, they'll be 8-2 in their last 10. So they're certainly playing well. 3 out of 4 against the Cubs, 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers, and then 2 out of 3 against the Braves, with the Dodgers and Braves being two of the better teams in the National League. And now it doesn't get any easier as you go to Cleveland and play a Guardians team that has the best record in the American League. Best record in the American League, second best record in baseball. So that's kind of like come out of nowhere. I've discussed this before, but in a way, you kind of expect them to come down to earth a little bit, like, especially when you look at what the pitching matchups are in that upcoming series. But we'll get into the Guardians a little bit later, but that series begins tonight. And so this is a big stretch. I've talked about it a lot. And so, like, playing the Dodgers, playing the Braves, to say, okay, they're going to be 4-2 through their series against the Dodgers and the Braves, like, you really couldn't ask for much more than that. And it continues here with the Guardians. Like I said, best record in the American League, second best record in baseball, and then an off day, and then home, 3 against the Blue Jays, who are having a disappointing season, and then 3 against the Twins, who are a contender in the American League, about 10 games over 500, and then it's the All-Star break. And then the Giants, by the way, they play at Colorado and then 4 at LA. So, you know, Colorado's a tough place to play, and obviously 4 at LA, that's going to be a big series as well. But so far, so good for this, like, important stretch. But at the same time, the Giants still find themselves under 500. And I think the critical kind of thing that the Giants need to do is kind of get over the hump there and get above 500 and start kind of consistently winning series. And especially, once you start playing lesser teams, just to consistently win those series is going to be critical for the final. There are 88 games into the season, so a little less than halfway to go, basically. And so Giants are 43 and 45. They were one swing away in their Dodgers series from winning that sweeping that series, really. Bases loaded, one out, tie game, extra innings. But they weren't able to get it done. But when you're 2 games under 500, it means if you had won just one more game, you would be 500 at 44 and 44. But so the issue kind of right now for the Giants, and we will get into the details of yesterday's game. The middle game was kind of forgettable. Jordan Hicks, Giants lost. Chris Sale was great. The Braves pitching just shut him down. And we'll get into the finale, though. That was a very good game for the Giants. Well pitched by Logan Webb. Big homers by Heliot, Ramos, and Matt Chapman. But just the big picture here that they can hang. Like, this is, if the Giants were in the third wild card position, they would be playing. Well, I guess I keep saying this, but I'm wrong. They wouldn't play the top wild card team. They'd play the top, or the worst of the 3 division winners. So they would actually be set to play the Brewers in Milwaukee, and it would be the Padres currently playing the Braves in Atlanta. But Giants are 3 games out of a playoff spot, and that's because a couple of teams, the Padres and the Cardinals, have essentially, if you're just above 500, you're in a playoff position in the National League. No teams above 500 are not in a playoff position. Does that make sense? There's no teams that are above 500 that are not in a playoff position. So if you're above 500, you're in a playoff position right now in the National League. So the Giants need some other teams to start losing as well. They're playing well, but overall, to be 43 and 45, it's not like you should be doing cartwheels in the street about that. They've got to play better. They are playing better, but they've got to do it consistently and get a record that reflects that of a good team and not a team kind of struggling to kind of stay afloat. But right now it does feel like the goal is to stay afloat until they have these pitching reinforcements come back. And those reinforcements are on the way and really in the immediate future. And so we will get into that later on as well. But yeah, the Padres are 48 and 43 now, and the Cardinals are 45 and 41, even though they have a quite negative run differential of minus 37. And so I would expect the Cardinals to kind of probably come down to earth a little bit. But Giants' run differential isn't exactly great at minus 27. And so, but as I said, the other day in their series against the Dodgers, and actually in the final 2 games against the Dodgers, there was literally a 10-run swing with 2 pitches. If Patrick Bailey had won the game in the middle game with like a sac fly and the Giants won by a run, because the Dodgers went on to win by 7 in that game in the 11th inning. They scored 7 runs. And then the next day, Giants allowed a 2-out, 2-run hit in the 9th inning. So that's an 8-run swing in the middle game and then a 2-run swing in the last game on 2 pitches. So their run differential, that's where run differential can potentially be a little bit misleading, I guess. So you could be, instead of minus 27, you could be at minus 17. But still, and I think minus 17 would more so reflect their actual record of 43 and 45. So kind of getting in the weeds here, but that's kind of the big picture view. This team, they're hitting well. I think they're underrated offensively. They're kind of consistently putting up, 4 or 5 runs a game for the most part. The one time they didn't in the series, they lost. But other than that, I'm pretty sure if I look at the schedule, we're going to see just consistent 4 or 5 runs. 4, 1, 5 going backwards, 10, 7, 5, 3, 4, 5, 5, 3, 4, 5, 5, 2, 7, 13, 3, 6, 5. So, yeah, I mean, they've just been hitting well. They've been one of the better offensive teams over the last 30 days. And even on the season, the last 30 days, 114 weighted runs created plus, which means 14% above average offense. And overall on the season, we're talking about 5% above average kind of overall park adjusted offensive ability. So coming up in just a minute, we'll get into how the Giants won this finale in Atlanta with their offense and with just vintage Logan Webb, and just a little appreciation for Logan Webb coming up as well. So we'll get into that in just a minute. And before we do, this episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. And that includes your rival city. Yes, you can go to Los Angeles like I did early on in the season and actually enjoy your stay despite the dreaded Dodgers being the team from that location. So coming up, I mean, the Giants are going to Cleveland now, then they're in Colorado, then they do go to LA 22nd through the 25th of July. There's just so many opportunities for travel in the baseball season, and with Booking.com, you can find hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more to make your stay just perfect, even in your rival's city. I love traveling for baseball games, and Booking.com makes it that much easier to make it a great stay. Because lodging is just as important, if not more important, than the experience at the game. So the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, here we go. We're going to get into the weeds here about this finale in Atlanta and how the Giants were able to win it and why it was so big that they won the first game. Because winning the first game, I feel like they've done a better job of that this season, even though their record isn't great, but it just puts you in a position to win a series because you just got to win one of the next two. And, it's not like the Giants faced the Braves like the soft underbelly of the Braves here. They went through Ronaldo Lopez, Chris Sale, and Charlie Morton. That's probably the top three in the Braves rotation. It is the top three in the Braves. They don't have Spencer Strider right now, and they won't have him. But to show yourself and to show your fans that you can beat that team on the road, I think was a big deal. So anyway, thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we're going to be breaking down Game 1 in Cleveland and when I say tomorrow, I mean actually I'm all thrown off by the holiday. Tomorrow is Saturday, so on Monday we're going to be breaking down this entire series in Cleveland with, like I've said this, the Giants, I just thought, have a 500 or better road trip. I thought it was important. And so now you could lose 2 out of 3 and still have a 500 road trip, but get greedy. Try to win a series here and make it a great road trip. So we'll be breaking that down on Monday, which will be an off day for the Giants. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So yeah, I do just want to get into some of the specifics of this game because I thought it was just a really entertaining game and one in which we saw some vintage things, and we also just saw kind of some important things that, important players came through in seasons in which they're having big years. And I'm talking about Logan Webb, I'm talking about Matt Chapman, and I'm talking about Heliot Ramos specifically. So Logan Webb, I mean, where would they be without him? It's kind of crazy if you look at Fangraphs wins above replacement, which they use fielding independent pitching for their WAR calculation. It's going to look different if you use actual run prevention. And I want to actually pull that. Yeah, runs allowed per nine WAR looks different. I think that's kind of more relevant than FIP based WAR. But anyway, Logan Webb, I'll go back and go by normal Fangraphs wins above replacement, is at 3 for the Giants per Fangraphs with a 3.09 ERA, 119 and a third innings just past the halfway point of the season, which is kind of crazy. I don't think he's leading the major leagues, but he's certainly close. So he is leading the major leagues. But he has one more start than the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, he looks to be the only pitcher who's made 19 starts. I could be wrong. Yeah, he's the only pitcher in the majors who's made 19 starts. And so there's a bunch of guys with 18. So he is leading the league, but he also has one more start than anybody else. But, just almost take him for granted. We almost take him for granted. And I don't think we should. With a 3.09 ERA, it seems like just consistently low threes is what you're going to get. I mean, we look at since 2021, starting in 2021, 3.03 ERA, 2022, 2.90 ERA, 2023, 3.25, and then this year 3.09. And if we look at all those years, so that's now, 3.5 seasons essentially, 3.08 ERA, and currently again this year 3.09 ERA. So just the consistency, the consistent ability to get the ball on the ground, limit home runs, and limit walks. Logan Webb is just one of the best pitchers in baseball, and he is homegrown. I mean, he's from the area. They got that extension done with him, 5 years, $90 million. That didn't, even though they got it done at the start of last season, it didn't go into effect until this season. And so it's 5 years starting this year. So he doesn't reach free agency until after the 2028 season. So you've got 2024, 2025, 6, 7, and 8. And so, we're just blessed to have Logan Webb, and let's not take him for granted. I don't think anybody does, but it's like this guy is just as steady and consistent as it gets. And when I say where would they be without him, because nobody else is even close when we're talking about Fangraphs wins above replacement. The next closest pitcher is actually Ryan Walker, a reliever, and then Kyle Harrison. But again, this is fielding independent pitching based, whereas like Jordan Hicks has a 3.47 ERA in 90 2/3 innings, but the fielding independent pitching is like half a run higher at 4.03. So if we were to go runs allowed per 9, wins above replacement, Jordan Hicks is at 1.6 and Logan Webb is at 2.9. But Ryan Walker still comes in third at 1.3. So Ryan Walker, just like I just must say, is having an elite start to his major league career. And this season, he's just been a machine with a strikeout rate 34%, walk rate just 4.7%. He is really good, and I don't want to take him for granted either, because bullpens, they're hard to come by. If you have a bad bullpen, it makes life really difficult for you. But the Giants, the results overall haven't been great, but they've certainly got individuals in that bullpen who are really good. And I know it's not been the best year for Camilo Doval, but he closed out, I think, both wins in this series. Yeah. And, um, he's just having a really good career. It's just not been the best season so far. It's only been like 30 something innings. So I wouldn't read too much into that. But in other news, like also super importantly, we saw continued success from some key players like Heliot, Ramos, and Matt Chapman. So for Chapman, I mean, he's just come around and he's just like become to me, there's something about him. Like there's something like so consistent about him in his approach and his demeanor and the fact that he's just out there pretty much every single day. He leads the team in games played by 8, and Tyro Estrada is second, and Estrada's on the injured list, so that's going to keep growing. And the next closest player is Jorge Soler, who has 10 fewer games played than Matt Chapman. So he's played in 85 games, and the Giants have played a total of 88 games. And so, all but 3 games for Matt Chapman. And it's just like, oh yeah, you just see with the day in and day out performance that when all is said and done, this is just a good baseball player. And he had some hits taken away from him on incredible defensive plays by Jared Kelenic in the first game in the first game of the series, I think it was. And, but in yesterday's win, he hit a homer following up on a big homer by Heliot Ramos. He also had a little check swing double, which he was absolutely owed. It was kind of crazy down the first base line on a check swing fair. And then defensively, he's certainly not been. He's had some great plays, but he's also kind of been a little bit of butterfingers at times. Just got like a little bit like ball is like a bar of soap at times for him. But overall, I want him on my team and I want him out there. And then Heliot Ramos just did it again with a homer to dead center that was just a bomb when all was said and done. And so he comes in now with, just continues to do it. Every day he does stuff like that. It just cements more and more the legitimacy of the breakout that we've seen this season from Heliot Ramos. So now he's hitting 298, 373 on base, 530 slugging. I mean, just more of the same. He's basically put that up since he came up. I mean, he just hasn't slowed down really for the most part. He's had some little slumps here and there, but then he'll just come right back and just continue to be excellent. Like he's just been excellent for 51 games, 225 plate appearances. And so that's a big deal. This is probably the biggest story of the season for the Giants, with the 24-year-old Ramos having a breakout season finally. I mean, he's been a top 100 prospect for them for a long time, and we're finally seeing that. Certain guys got injured in the outfield. It gave Ramos an opportunity, and so it's a good thing that in a way certain guys get injured in baseball, because it gives guys like Ramos an opportunity, and he's taken advantage. Not everybody does, and so just a great story, and it continued, and he tied the game. The Giants were down 2-0. Webb gave up 2 in the first, and then Ramos tied it up with a 2-run shot in the fourth, and the Braves got no more runs after that 2-run first. So coming up in just a minute, I do want to get into the fact that there's a couple of key pitchers for the Giants on the cusp of returning. So we'll get into those details and what it means in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Giants, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collections season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, like me, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, that's not me, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. And be sure to mention Locked On Giants at checkout, and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Ibotta. Are you dreaming, or are you taking that dream vacation this summer but dreading the cost? With Ibotta, you can get cash back on all of your purchases so you can spend more time making memories this summer and less time dreaming about them. Ibotta is the free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on thousands or hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or that fancy dinner you've been craving. It's time you joined the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB. All right, here we go. We are going to get into the injury updates for the Giants. We do have a couple of key pitchers on the cusp of returning, including one in this series against the Guardians. Also going to kind of preview the pitching matchups in this series and why I do think the Giants have a chance to win this series as well. And so that's huge. I mean, that would obviously be huge, and it's huge to get these pitchers back. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers on Monday breaking down this series in Cleveland. Giants hopefully will be the team that starts to bring this Guardians team back down to earth a little bit. Nobody expected them to have the best record in the American League more than halfway through the season. But, you know, the Guardians are kind of known to sometimes pull that kind of thing off. And Giants go in there. The Guardians generally pitch well. I'm assuming their bullpen is really good because they've got a couple of starters going in this series that don't have great results, and yet it's hard to have great results as a team when you have a couple guys in your rotation who aren't doing great. And so anyway, we'll be breaking down the series on Monday. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. A reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So the fact is, today's going to be a bullpen game. Eric Miller is going to get the start. Doesn't mean like I call it a bullpen game, but I don't know who exactly is going to follow Eric Miller. It could be Spencer Bivens. He hasn't pitched in a while. It could be Randy Rodriguez to throw down some innings. Is Bivens like in the rotation? Bivens hasn't pitched in a while, and he's not scheduled to pitch in this series because the Giants announced their probables, with Eric Miller going tonight, and then Kyle Harrison returning to the rotation, missing essentially one start. I think just one start with that sprained ankle that he sustained in a workout prior to a game, and then Hayden Birdsong going in the finale. And so, you know, Birdsong helped the Giants win game one in Atlanta, but, you know, he is a 22-year-old making his third career start. The Guardians offense has been good, a little bit better than the Giants. Eric Miller and a bullpen game, you know, so it's not, you know, the most favorable kind of pitching setup for the Giants. It seems that they've kind of planned it out because they did, you know, going into Atlanta. Well, maybe, I mean, the Guardians have a better record, but I feel like the Braves are a more dangerous team. We'll see how that plays out. Certainly the Guardians are playing exceptionally well this year at 54-31. So tonight, Eric Miller will start. I think Spencer Bivens will probably be the guy to go next, or it could be Randy Rodriguez. And then it's Tanner Bybee going for the Guardians, and he has a 3.47 ERA, and so he's been quite good. But then if you look ahead, like I said, Kyle Harrison against Logan Allen, who's a lefty with an ERA of 5.75. 5.75. That's what I'm saying. How do you have a guy who's made 17 starts with an ERA close to 6 and have a record like the Guardians have? He's 8-4 with a 5.75 ERA. So I don't often care about pitcher wins and losses, but that's hard to do. It means often they've scored a ton of runs for him, is what that means. And on Sunday, Carlos Carrasco is going against Hayden Birdsong, and Carrasco has an ERA in the 5.21 in 15 starts, 76 innings. And so Giants have a chance if they can get going early, which has been an issue. They've kind of struggled against starters and done better against relievers. But Carrasco and Logan Allen present opportunities for runs against starting pitchers, 2 pitchers with ERAs in the 5s. And then, I wouldn't bet against Eric Miller in a bullpen game either. The Giants have done pretty well in those too. So it's going to be a good series, I think. And the Giants just winning one would make it a decent road trip. And if you can win a series, it makes it a great road trip for the Giants. And then they come home, and in their first game home, they're getting Blake Snell back, who pitched 5 innings he keeps doing this in his rehab starts. No hits, no hits in 5 innings, walked 1, struck out 9 in Triple-A in Reno, I believe it was. And so he is going to pitch. He is scheduled to pitch the first game after this Cleveland series. So on Tuesday at Oracle Park, Blake Snell set to come back against the Blue Jays. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day, everydayers. On Monday, breaking down the series in Cleveland and getting you set for the final homestand of the first half and the All-Star game. And hopefully, we're going to get announcements on All-Stars, and Logan Webb has to make it, or else I'm going to blow a gasket here on the show. And so you won't want to miss that one way or the other. But yeah, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.